In this walkthrough, I'll be showing you how to create and deploy the crisis communication solution that we blogged about last week. To get the full instructions on how you can implement your own crisis communication solution, you can check out our docs, where we've listed all the steps that I'm about to show you in this video. In this video, I'll be showing you how to deploy all of the necessary pieces of this solution, including the end-user app, which allows employees to see important information and to make a request, the admin app, which allows you to create content for the application, and a couple flows to send notifications. And lastly, a SharePoint site to store all of the data for your app. Once you're done with this walkthrough, you'll have a crisis communication app embedded inside of Teams. Before we start actually creating and deploying the application, however, you'll want to go to aka.ms/crisis communication solution. This will take you to our GitHub page, which has all of the assets that you need to get this app up and running. Selecting Download All Assets will download the zip file, which has all of the assets that you need, including the end-user app, admin app, a flow to deploy your lists, and a Power BI report. We also have GCC versions of the app and flow. Now let's get started by creating our SharePoint list that will store all of the data for our app. To do that, first go to sharepoint.com. Once you're there, you'll want to click the Create Site button. Select Team Site, and then you can give your site a name, like Crisis Comms. You'll want to set the privacy settings to public so that anyone can access the data of this app. Once you're done, select Next, and then you have the opportunity to add additional owners and members. Once you're done, select Finish. Now that you've created your SharePoint site, now it's time to create the list that will store all of the data necessary for your app. To make this process easier, we have a SharePoint creating flow inside of the Assets folder to automatically do this for you. To use the flow, first go to Power Automate. Once you're on Power Automate, you'll want to go to My Flows and select Import to bring in the flow that will auto-generate our lists. Click Upload and then select Deploy SharePoint List.zip. Once it's been uploaded, you'll want to update the connection for this flow. To do that, select during import. This will open up the pane where you can select an existing SharePoint connection. If you don't already have a SharePoint connection, select Create New. This will take you to the New Connections page. Select New Connection, find SharePoint, and select it, and then follow the prompts to create your connection to SharePoint. Once you're done, you can come back to the import screen, select Refresh, and find your new connection. Once you're done selecting your SharePoint connection, you can click Import. Once it's imported, you'll have a success screen where you can select the Open Flow button to navigate directly to your flow. Once you're on the Edit screen, you can see all the steps that we use to create the SharePoint list in your SharePoint site, including the admin list, news list, and others. To configure this flow to work on your actual site, you'll want to adjust some of the variables in this flow. First, open up the Variable-Target Site for List card. In this card, you'll want to copy and paste the name of your SharePoint site into the value field. To do that, I'm going to go back to my SharePoint site, copy the URL, go back to my flow, and paste it in. Once you're done setting the SharePoint site, you can click Save. Once it's done saving, you can click on the Back button to see the details view of your flow. You now want to select the Run button to trigger your new flow. Click Continue and click Run Flow. Finally, click Done. Once your flow is done running, you can go back to SharePoint to see your new list. To do so, select Site Contents from the left nav, where all of your lists will now live. If you select on any of your lists, it might look like no columns were created. To show or hide columns, select Add Column and Show Hide Columns. This will allow you to show all the columns that we created for you for these lists. Now that we've created our list, we can go ahead and start importing the apps. To do that, you'll want to go to make.powerapps.com. And just like when we imported the flow, you'll want to go to your list of apps and select Import. This will take you to a similar screen where you can upload the crisiscommunication.zip file. If you are in a GCC environment, please use the crisis communication gcc.zip. Once you're done importing the app, you'll want to update the connections. To update the connections, select during import, select an existing connection or create new, and repeat until all of the connections have been set. Once you're done, you can select Import. Once your app has been imported, you can select Open App to open the app inside of the Power Apps Canvas Studio. Go ahead and select Allow once you see the Connections dialog. This app needs to have its data sources updated to point to your actual SharePoint site. To do that, go to the sidebar on the left and select Data Sources. From there, you'll want to go ahead and delete all of the SharePoint lists. To do that, click on the ... menu and click Remove. Repeat until they are all gone. You now want to import your own SharePoint lists. To do that, search for SharePoint, select SharePoint, select your existing connection, and then you'll want to find the SharePoint site that you created earlier. If your SharePoint site doesn't appear in the recent list of SharePoint sites, you can copy and paste your URL and click Connect. From there, go ahead and select all the list and document libraries and click Connect. Don't worry if the app still looks blank. That's because we still need to set it up in the admin application. Now that you're done setting up the end user app, go ahead and save and publish by going to File, Save, and Publish. Now, let's go ahead and set up the admin app so that we can create the content for this application. To do that, go back to powerapps.com, select Apps, and once again, click on Import. Now, instead of uploading the crisiscommunication.zip file, we'll upload the crisiscommunicationadmin.zip file. Once it's uploaded, go ahead and click Import. And once it's done importing, select Open App to open it up inside of the Canvas Studio. Once again, select Allow once you see the connection dialog. And go to the Data pane to delete all of the SharePoint lists. Finally, go ahead and search for SharePoint once again. Select your crisis communication site. And then once again, select all of the list and document libraries before finally selecting Connect. Once the SharePoint lists have been added, you can once again save and publish by going to File, Save, and Publish. Now that we have the admin app set up, let's go ahead and learn how to use it. First, go to your apps list, find the Crisis Communication Admin app, and select it. Now that you're inside of the admin app, you can use this app to set admin settings, company contacts, company news, helpful tips, links, and frequently asked questions. We're going to get started, however, with admin settings, since those are the most important. Once you're on the admin settings screen, you can set basic information like the admin email address and your logo URL. The next field, AAD Group ID, allows you to set the ID of the group that you want to send push notifications to with the flow. To get your AAD Group ID, go to aad.portal.azure.com. Once you're there, you'll want to go to Azure Active Directory, select Groups, and then find the group that you want to send notifications to. You typically want to send the notifications to everyone, so I have a group called Everyone that I can navigate to and copy and paste the object ID on this screen. Now you can paste that ID in the AAD Group ID field. The next field, App URL, is what's used by the flow to push users to the app once they click on the Read More link. To get the app URL, you'll want to go back to Power Apps, find your Crisis Communication app, select Details, and copy and paste the web link. Once you've copied the URL, you can paste it in the app URL field. The next field is the government RSS feed, which allows you to populate the World News section of the application. To set this field, find an RSS feed that you want to use, like Who News, and copy and paste the URL to the RSS feed. And then you can paste this RSS feed in the field. The next field, Notification Method, allows you to set how the notification is sent from the flow. You have three options: email, Teams notification, and push notification. Please note that if you're in a GCC environment, Teams notification is not supported. Lastly, are a bunch of feature flags that allow you to turn on and off various features inside of the app. Since I want to use all the features, I'm going to turn on all the flags. Finally, once you're done setting all this information, you can click Save. The other sections of the app allow you to set the content inside of the end user application. It's pretty simple to use. Simply select a section where you'll get a list of all of your existing data, and to create new data, select the Create button at the bottom. From there, simply fill out the details. Once you're done filling out the details, you can click Save. This will drop you back onto the original screen where you can see your new information being created. To get full details of how to fill out the forms, please go to our Docs article on docs.microsoft.com. Once you're done filling out data for your app, now it's time to test the end user application to make sure that everything looks great. To do that, go back to Power Apps and click on the Crisis Communication app to play it. The most important thing to test is to make sure that your content is coming through correctly. To do that, select on items like Company News and make sure that all of your content is coming through. Repeat for helpful tips, frequently asked questions, links, and emergency contacts. Now that we have the app working, we now want to create the necessary flows to send out notifications to end users. If you go to Power Automate, select My Flows, you'll see that one flow has already been added for you when you added the end user application. To add the other flow, go ahead and select Import, and like before, upload the appropriate zip. This time, you'll want to upload Crisis Communication News Notification.zip. If you're in GCC, you'll want to upload the GCC version. Once it's been uploaded, you'll want to change and update the connections by selecting Select during import. Once again, you'll want to select either an existing connection or select the New button. As a reminder, if you need to create a new connection, when you click on Create New, you'll land on the connection screen where you'll need to select New Connection and search for the connection that you need. In this case, I'm creating a connection for Power Apps notifications. So when I'm on the connections screen, I want to search for Power Apps notification. That'll show me the connection that I can select and fill in the appropriate information. The Power Apps notification connection requires the target application URL, which we copy and pasted before. Simply get the URL again by going to powerapps.com, selecting details, and copying and pasting the web link back inside of the dialog. Once the connection has been made, you can go back to your import dialog, click refresh, and you'll see the new connection that you just created. Go ahead and select it and click save. Repeat until all of the connections are done. And once they're done, select import. Once it's done importing, you can select Open Flow to open the flow editor. Once you're on the edit screen, we'll need to update a few of these cards that point to the right information. For example, first we need to update the SharePoint cards to point to the correct SharePoint site. Clear out the existing value and search for your crisis communication site, and point the list to Company News. Next, we'll need to update the admin config settings. Once again, clear out the existing site, select Crisis Comms, and change the list to Config Admin Setup. Lastly, if you don't speak English, you'll want to update the Read More Text and News Update cards. Go ahead and open them up and change the value of these cards to reflect your local language. Once you're done, select Save. We also need to edit the other flow that was added as part of the app. To do that, go back to My Flows and select Crisis Communication Request. In this flow, we need to update the Team ID and Channel ID variables. This will allow you to send notifications to your Central Crisis Management team. If you haven't already created your Central Crisis Management team, let me show you how to do that. First, open up Teams and go to the Teams tab in the app bar. Once you're there, select Join or Create a Team and select Create Team. This will open up a dialog where you can then create a new team from scratch or from an existing Office 365 group or team. Go ahead and complete these steps to create your new crisis management team. Once you've created your team, we'll want to get the URL of a specific channel that we want to send help requests to. To do that, select the channel you want to send requests to, go to the ... menu in the top right, and select Get Link to Channel. You now want to copy this link. Once you've copied the link, you'll want to open up a text editor and paste it inside of there. We now want to extract the important IDs that we need. First, let's start with the team ID. The team ID is everything that happens after group ID equals. In this case, it's everything that I'm highlighting right now. Now that I've copied this, I'm going to bring it back and paste it inside of the team ID card. Simply replace the existing ID with your new ID. Next, we want to grab the channel ID. The channel ID is everything after channel /. In this case, it's everything that I'm currently highlighting. It should end with thread.tacv2. Once you've copied it, go back to Flow, open up the channel card, and replace the value with your new value. Once you're done, select Save. Now that we've set up our flows, let's go test them. The first one sends out a notification whenever a new news article is created. So to test that, let's open up our admin application. Once you've opened up the admin application, navigate to Company News and click Create New Post. Provide some details and click Save. In Teams, you should get a new chat from the Flowbot that provides the details about the new crisis. The last thing you want to test is Make a Request. The Make a Request function sends a notification to your Teams channel. So make a request and click Submit. Once you go back to your Teams channel, you should see a flow card with the request details. Notice that it says, I have a request. Please also note that this request captures the user's location in order to report on it in the Power BI report. If you don't want to store this information, find your crisis communication app and select Edit. Once the app is loaded, you'll want to search for Button Date Range. This is the button that sends the location information to the SharePoint list. To make sure the location information isn't sent, make sure you are on the OnSelect property and open up the formula bar. Inside the formula bar, replace where it says location.latitude with blank. Do that for both of them. Once you're done, you can save and publish, and the app will no longer collect latitude and longitude. The last thing you want to do is make your app more discoverable in Teams. To do that, go back to your apps list, find your crisis communication app, and select the ... menu. Underneath the menu is an Add to Teams option. Select that. Then you can select Download App. Once the app's been downloaded, you can bring it into Teams. To do that, open up Teams, select Apps, and select Upload a Custom App. If you're an admin of Teams, you'll have the option to upload for your tenant. In my case, it's CT Electronics. Once you've selected the option, search for your zip file and click Open. This will add the app to your app catalog. To get the app in the app bar for all of your users, you now want to navigate to the Teams admin site. To do that, you want to go to admin.teams.microsoft.com. Once you do, you'll want to go to the Teams app section and click on Setup Policies. To send this app to everyone, select Global Org-Wide Default. Click Add Apps, and then search for the app that you just added. And select it. Once you're done adding the app, you can bump it up and down inside of the app bar by selecting it and clicking Move Up and Move Down. Once you're happy, you can click on the Save button. Setup policies can take up to 24 hours to take effect. Once the policy has propagated, you'll be able to access the app by simply clicking on it in the app bar. While users wait for the app to be propagated, you can also access it from the app catalog. Simply select the app and click Add. The last thing you want to do is make sure your crisis communication team is as effective as possible. To do that, you can leverage the team you already created for them and add additional tabs at the top of the channel so that it can stay more productive. For example, it might be useful to add the admin app. To do that, click on the plus button, search for Power Apps, and then search for the admin app. Once you found it, you can select it and press Save. Feel free to add additional tabs. In the full documentation, we even walk you through how to add a Power BI report that shows the presence of all the users that are using the application. Now that you've completed all the steps in this walkthrough, you now have an app pinned to Teams that anyone can use to access information. And you have two flows that send information to your employees about new company news, and a flow that alerts your central crisis management team when there is a new request. If you have feedback, follow the link below. We'd love to hear about your experience deploying and customizing this application.